Let's remember back to the beginning of this week. As Shabbat comes in, let's ask ourselves, and this could be a routine we do every Sabbath, how did my week begin? What were the most meaningful parts? What do I want to take with me into Shabbat, and what do I want to leave? And the beginning of this particular week was the beginning of what is in Jewish terms, in Jewish time, called the 3 weeks. Unique space in the calendar when we don't plan simchas and we set aside any new building projects if you're really observing these 3 weeks, because the 17th of Tammuz to the 9th of Av, this is a 3 week period in which we are reflecting on the forces that destroyed the homes and the sacred spaces of the Jewish people. 17 Tammuz, this past Sunday, the beginning of our week, was a fast day, just like the 9th of Av will be 3 weeks away. Now 2 weeks, if you're listening on Friday. And the question for us when it comes to our fast rituals is, how does this ritual in modern times, when we have the land of Israel, the state of Israel, the rebuilt Jerusalem in modern form, the prosperity and the renaissance of Jewish life in America for these many years that we've been a presence here in this wonderful land of freedom, how is it that we step back and embrace this kind of lachrymosity, this kind of sad chapters in Jewish history approach to keeping a Jewish calendar and to ritualize these days with fasting? Well, the answer, of course, is that life is a balance between celebrating the richness, between the gratitude we have for all that God grants, for the life and opportunity we've carved for ourselves, the power we've embraced as a Jewish people in the Holy Land and beyond in diaspora lands. Yet it's with humility, and it's with understanding, and it's with acknowledging that not every generation had it as good, that there are forces that challenge us, that anti-Semites still rage, that higher level anti-Semitism, using words and intersectionality and combining all kinds of negative and evil forces in their minds with the pursuits of Jews around the world, in Israel and in all marketplaces, free marketplaces, and everywhere, there are those who seek destruction. And the destruction of Jerusalem and then its temple that we mark 17 Tammuz to 9th of Av is a time to remember that history, to return, to learn that history, to reflect on its lessons, not only for the Jewish people, but for the world in general. The negativity that enemies of Israel have demonstrated is that very negativity that lies in the hearts of people who would turn and make devious, nefarious Axis-like alliances to undermine the state-building projects that center themselves in democracy and freedom and sacred law, as in the combination of democracy and some sacred law that helps guide Israel forward these days. The idea that this nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, is sometimes both underappreciated and even attacked, has been part and parcel of what we've experienced in our world today. My fast on Sunday was about the recognition that the history of the Jewish people is there so we may reflect on the current beautiful chapters unfolding in Jewish life and protect against those forces that seek to destroy us. My fast on Sunday was about lifting and holding up the idea and the promise of America as an American Jew, to say that there are forces working to undermine the systems and the solutions that are offered when we try to meet the ideals and live out the values and ideals that were embedded within founding constitutional documents or the mindsets of those who had in their hearts respect and love for every citizen who is created in the image of the divine. My fast on Sunday got to the micro local level where I thought about our community's tzedakah and how we have to reach out and fight against food insecurity because of the very physical nature of the fast. That was a first level of relationship to this ritual, that we who know a meal is coming can fast in order to appreciate that meal coming forth and wonder how we can help secure that meal for all those with whom we share this great city. And then bringing it to those historical levels that I described. The fast takes on vast meaning and potentially focuses us during the summer months, which are these lighter times, these wonderful times that life gets a little lighter. You know, Mark Twain did say that human beings have only one real weapon, and that weapon is laughter. And that reminds me of the very famous Talmudic story that Rabbi Akiva was walking with his colleagues, and they were walking by the very ruins of the temple that we will mourn on the 9th of Av, that we started to think about on the 17th of Tammuz and the fast of Tammuz. And they are in tears, and they are crying, and they are wailing, and they are mourning. And Rabbi Akiva is laughing. And they say to their colleague, Akiva, how could you be laughing at such a time? And Akiva looks at them and says, just as the words of the prophets came true, that the temple would be destroyed, that those instruments of history, the tyrants, the empire builders would come and destroy us, so too will we be returned to our home of peace, to our house of prayer for all nations. One day it will be rebuilt. And he laughed. And he had laughter in his heart and in his body and in his mouth. And that reminded him of the great verse from Psalms, Hu yimale schok pinu, that God will fill our mouths with laughter, our hearts with joy. And if we are to focus on our relationship with long-term vision of God and of the Jewish people who expresses it through daily prayers, Sabbath lights, and all we hope for is shalom. If we focus on that, on the ultimate peace that could be, then we are fulfilling the purpose of our fast. We will fulfill the purpose of our fasts this summer with all that in mind. So let us together fight hunger and give tzedakah to causes that provide for hunger relief. Let us focus on Jewish history. Let us understand more about the sieges and the enemies who try to undermine the great projects of Jewish community around the globe. Let us not only focus on the lachrymosity of that reality, but on the hope and promise of the people who fought with their hearts, minds, souls, bodies, who took and empowered themselves to lift up Jewish causes and to make personal connections to the Torah of Israel, the people of Israel, and the God of Israel. And finally, let us focus on the ultimate aim, and that is shalom, shlemut, that all peoples could live together, that the temple ultimately is a symbol of a house of prayer for all nations. Beit Tfilah. It will be a house that brings together all nations. It's a symbolic, sacred space of life that is not only physical, but is that effervescent, shared spiritual notion that we all, created in the image of God, can exist together and pray for each other, for each other's children and beyond, to make connections to the generations gone and to bring their light into our world. This time in the summer is a time of light, And as we say, Or Zarua La Tzaddik, light is sown for the righteous. Shabbat Shalom this week, an inspiration for the 3 weeks.